Hey everybody, Denise here. I hope you're all having a great day. Last week I did a kind of ask me anything social media thing you might have seen on Facebook and Instagram, and I did actually record videos there for the questions I received over social media. But I've received other questions since then, and some of them were really, really good. And I posted answers in the Secular Synagogue group, and people were like, oh, this is really helpful. So I just thought I'd also share them here. And these are kind of, for some people, if you've been hanging around with me for a long time or a member of Secular Synagogue for a long time, this might be repetitive, but a refresher could be good. And certainly for people kind of new to following me or curious about what is secular and cultural Judaism, some of these questions might answer questions you might have had. So my first question is, like, what even is secular Judaism? A lot of people will say, like, I thought to be Jewish you had to believe in God or you had to pray. Like, that's what I was told Judaism was. The reality is there are a lot of people, I mean, I would argue worldwide millions of people who identify as Jewish, for whom being culturally Jewish is really important to them, but who don't believe in God, or at least if they maybe believe in something larger, but they don't consider prayer to be their primary access point to Jewish cultural expression or practice. Often they don't find prayer services meaningful or moving, and it's very important to them identity-wise to be Jewish, and they love participating in holidays and different kinds of practices and traditions, but they aren't centered around God. They're centered around the human experience, and that's exactly what I provide in Secular Synagogue. And the folks who are attracted to that community might be on a spectrum of belief. So some people are like hardcore atheist, and some are like, I do believe in God, but not the God of the Bible. Some people call themselves spiritual but not religious. But what we have in common is a desire to connect with cultural Judaism. So we have secular interpretations of blessings, for example, for the wine and candles and challah of Shabbat. We get together for holidays online, and we talk about their significance and do some celebratory aspects. Last week for Tu B'Av, which is like the Jewish Valentine's Day, I did a text study on, what do our Jewish texts, Torah and Talmud, say about Tu B'Av, and then we read some love poetry to each other as an example. So that's what secular and cultural Judaism is all about. And the more you follow my social media stuff, or if you're not on my email list, then it's a good time to get on the email list. I'm sending stuff out quite a lot to learn more about it. And then someone else asked, well, then why be Jewish at all? Like, if you're culturally Jewish and you're kind of a secular Jew, like, why is it important to be Jewish? And for some people, it's not important to be Jewish, but for me and for others like me, being Jewish does feel like a really important part of who I am. I was born Jewish. Not everybody who identifies as Jewish was. And I was raised with a sense of Jewish culture and identity. So I have a real affinity with some of the practices and holidays and songs and traditions. People might come to it later in life, and very often what attracts people to Judaism is our commitment to social justice, especially the way we do it in kind of secular and cultural Judaism. Social justice is a really, really significant part. Teachings around, love the stranger and hospitality and repair the world. So there are lots of great reasons to be Jewish. And sometimes people, I think it's like, if you have pride in being Jewish, then that's saying that it's bad to be anything that's not Jewish. That's not the case. And in our group, certainly we're very, very open to folks who are in intermarriages or intercultural partnerships, including me. So lots of people in the group are actually the partners of Jews or significant others of Jews, not actually Jewish themselves. And that's fine. I think that there's a lot to offer in Jewish tradition for everybody. You don't even have to be Jewish to access it and enjoy it. People ask then, okay, so then how do you decide what parts to follow? I would say every Jew, even very Orthodox and practicing Jews, are picking and choosing the laws and traditions and customs that resonate for them or that make sense in their life. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't apply anymore. Originally, the way you would celebrate a Jewish holiday was making an animal sacrifice at the Central Temple in Jerusalem. I think we can all agree we don't, we're not nostalgic for that, and we don't hope for a return to that. So we've let some of those practices go, but we replace them with holiday traditions that do mean something. So maybe that's a Seder at Passover. Maybe that's doing apples and honey, and the tradition of tashlich, or casting away, when we throw stuff into the rivers to symbolize letting go of the year that's passed. So there's all kinds of beautiful traditions, and I would say all of us learn about them and figure out which ones make sense in our life. I always talk to people about experimentation. So try them on, try it out. If it doesn't work for you, you don't have to keep doing it, but it might. And I also believe in giving people permission to let go of some traditions that are no longer serving them, that maybe you grew up with or learned somewhere along the way. So people ask, like, what is a secular rabbi then? The word rabbi really means teacher, and I'm a teacher in lots of aspects of my life, but think of it as a guide. So my job is to help show people what are the options, what are the interpretations that might work for you if you're a secular or cultural Jew or their partner or family member, and how do we incorporate this in our lives? People sometimes seek me out for pastoral counseling and support. That's another role I have, and it's to be a spiritual and cultural leader. So I put together services, online services, and try to make the traditions accessible and try to build community. So I think that's the role of every rabbi. Even people who belong to more traditional congregations, if they have a rabbi, I often say to them, like, think of what your rabbi does. I do all that same stuff except for lead prayer services, and that's probably the least interesting thing that your rabbi does. So I think it's really important for people to have teachers and leaders. I certainly value the teachers and leaders in my life, and I'm honored to serve in that capacity for the secular synagogue folks. People asked about text. Do we read Torah, Talmud? We do. So every week, for those who don't know, I do a show on Jewish Live. So that's Jewish Live online or on their Facebook page. And Dan Liebenson of Judaism Unbound and I have a show called Daring Judaism every Friday where we talk through the weekly Torah portion from a secular perspective. I also created blog entries for each of the weekly Torah portions from a secular perspective. So I like text, and it comes up certainly in our Elul program that's coming up. We have a weekly text study component. It's not everybody's jam, and that's fine. There are members of secular synagogue who read a daily page of Torah, of Talmud every day. It's called Daf Yomi. So that's how you get through the whole Talmud in 7 years. And there are people who are like, I would never pick up a page of Talmud. Totally fine. It's just different things that resonate and work for different kinds of people. But we do use text in interesting ways. I'm also, by the way, a believer that we can't leave text to the kind of religious zealots, the Bible thumpers, as they're sometimes known. I mean that respectfully, because then they use the Bible for all kinds of horrible things to justify homophobia, for example, or sexism. And if you know the Bible, then you know that for every, thing that's anti-intermarriage, there's also things that are pro-intermarriage. And so I'm a real believer that the textual traditions belong to all of us and are not actually the domain of the most religious. In fact, they are most dangerous, I think, when placed with the most religious sometimes. And all of us can continue with the thousands-year-old tradition of interpreting text. I think that's exciting. People ask me why I became a rabbi. I was doing my PhD, which I loved, but at that moment, it was a hard time writing a dissertation that I felt like people wouldn't really read, and the 2008 financial crisis happened, and I was like, it is bleak in the university. Everybody's talking about there's going to be no jobs, but most importantly, I just thought, like, what can I do with my career and my life that will be of service to people and will help inspire people? And at first, I just wanted to be able to officiate life cycle events like weddings, but they convinced me at the rabbinical program that being a rabbi might be more suited to someone who kind of was an academic and was interested in going deeper on some of these topics. And they were, of course, right. So delighted to have become a rabbi. I was ordained in 2013 by the International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism, and I've been a rabbi ever since. And then someone asked what my favorite mitzvah is. That's a good deed. I love that question. And I said, I think different mitzvot for different times. Certainly, right now, I'm really trying to be an ally for racial justice. And on our secular synagogue website, we published our commitments for anti-racism. And I'm really committed to that work, which includes all kinds of things I might lump in with mitzvot, donating to Black-led causes, amplifying voices of people in the fight for justice, joining Black Lives Matter movements, so all different kinds of things. But I also kind of answered in our group that one of my favorite things to do with my kids is park cleanups. Every year around Earth Day, we do a big neighborhood cleanup, and I live in a very kind of mixed income neighborhood, so garbage does accrue in our alleyways and even sometimes needles and stuff, which like we don't let the kids touch, but it's nice to join with our neighbors and every year kind of do that big cleanup together, as well as encouraging our kids to help pick up garbage and stuff when we're on our hikes and that sort of thing. Trying to instill a sense that we're all responsible for our world even from a young age. So that's one of my favorite mitzvot as well. So those were some of the questions in the Ask Me Anything. I do want to say that we have an amazing program for the Jewish month of Elul, which is starting quite soon. And I published a blog today called What is Elul and Why Do We Need It? So that's up at secularsynagogue.com under the blog tab. And also I shared it through social media. So give that a read. And I'm always happy to, check in. If you've got any questions, then reach out. And if you want to leave a comment about anything I've said here or a question, feel free to do that and I'd be happy to answer. Take good care. Bye.